Hey, and welcome back to Encumbered. My name is Mitchell Brewer. And before we jump into the NASCAR happenings this week, I just want to take a moment to uh, talk about what's happening in the world and just take a moment to reflect. Because, I like to keep this strictly NASCAR centered, and I know some days it's hard to do that. There's a universe outside NASCAR. You don't need me explaining that. There's a lot of things are bigger than NASCAR. That's very obvious. But with everything happening, the tragedy in Texas, I feel like, you know, we talk about how sports are an escape, and everybody turns to sports during moments of tragedy and just wants to escape that, wants to just focus on what's going on in the NASCAR race this week, what's going on in the NBA playoffs, what's going on in this, that. And while I think it's good to have that escape from daily struggles and just overall struggles, I also think it's important that we don't use that escape to ignore what's happening in the world. And with that said, I just want to take a moment here just to honor those that were lost in Texas this week. So if you would please join me in a moment of silence for those all that were lost and their families as they try to get through this unimaginably painful time. And again, my thoughts and prayers are with all those that were affected by this terrible, terrible tragedy. The big topic of conversation this week was the AllStar Race. And I'm not going to go on about this for too long because I'm not a fan of all-star events. I think they're kind of pointless, and I don't think this is just a NASCAR thing. As we're seeing in other sports, the NFL is talking about how they want to get rid of the Pro Bowl because nobody cares about it. And I feel like we're getting to the point where nobody cares about the All-Star race, and we were already at that point before we got to the race on Sunday. And I mean, it's just hilarious to me because like NASCAR is completely rejuvenated and made better the Clash this season. They had a new event, unique, awesome, and they absolutely promoted the crap out of it. And they really went just all out trying to make this a spectacle. And it was an awesome event, and the Clash actually meant something. Now I want you to take what they did with the Clash and then compare it to whatever they did with the All Star race, because I don't even think they really even made this race feel important. I don't remember seeing much at all to say, hey, the All Star race is happening. Let's make this a big deal. It wasn't. Let's just call a spade a spade. It wasn't a big deal, and it showed. And I feel like, again, before the weekend, nobody cared about this race because it just doesn't really mean anything anymore. And taking it to one of the worst tracks on the circuit, just gonna make it even mean less. And I love the race at Coda, but if getting rid of Coda means that we can get rid of the All Star race at Texas and maybe even get rid of a Texas race in general, go for it because this was terrible. And unfortunately, the next gen has saved a lot of tracks this season. It could not save Texas, and I honestly don't know what could save this race. But honestly, what was even the more embarrassing part, and usually I try to use some of your guys' comments, but everybody's saying it. The ending of this race was just hilariously stupid, and it's one of the dumbest things I've ever seen in NASCAR history, where Ryan Blaney was literally feet away from taking the checkered flag, and the stupid caution comes out for Ricky Stenhouse, and we could even debate if that should have been a caution. Would it even be called on a regular race? Probably not. But it was just dumb, and so they restart the race. Ryan Blaney, of course, took his window net down, and the biggest controversy with that was, well, first off, they should have had him get the window net back up like it needed to be, because it's just like that's unsafe. That's unsafe. You can't be running out there with window net that's not properly secure. And Denny Hamlin kind of annoyed me with this, where he was like, they should have black flagged them, they should have taken him out of the race. Rules are rules. This is the stupid AllStar race. Jeff Gordon wrecked his regular car and went to a backup during the actual race and went out and won. Who gives a crap about the rules with this stupid race that doesn't mean anything? Like, just have him go on pit road, fix the window net, and just call it an audible because NASCAR screwed up and tried to make the race more interesting. And guess what? It didn't work. The end of the race wasn't even that interesting anyways. Ryan still won the race. Thank God, because he deserved the $1 million. Not that the $1 million really means much when all the rest of the races pay more than this one. It's just, I'm going to end it there because I could rant about this dumb race all day long. But again, I'm going to save my oxygen because everybody's already said the same things that I'm saying, and I share the general opinion. Let's just leave it at that. Was actually during the Open where Frankie Muniz was in the All-Star booth, and this was by far one of our most popular posts on our Facebook page. If you haven't liked it already, Black Hat Sports, plug. Was that Frankie Muniz announced that, hey, I'm going to be running the ARCA West season finale at Phoenix. And to a lot of people, this was a big surprise, but if you've been paying attention closely, you have known that Frankie Muniz, he tested at Daytona earlier this season for the preseason ARCA test. It looked like he could have possibly had a chance at racing at Daytona. I think plans kind of just fell through there, and this is definitely something he's been working on for a while, and he's been doing a lot of like late mile races at Irwindale and other tracks on the West Coast. So this isn't an out of nowhere thing. Personally, I thought he was going to be running the full ARCA West schedule before the season, but it is cool to see him take it one step at a time too, because it's not like he's just hopping into trucks or Xfinity and just saying, I can do this. No, he's actually climbing up the ladder circa like how you would in the old NASCAR 2005 video game, and taking it one ring at a time, which I think is very honorable. I feel like if he's taking this approach, I don't think he's just going to jump straight into trucks and Xfinity if he struggles at the ARCA level. Like, I think he actually is going to really want to take his time, grow, and prove that he actually belongs out there. And, that's really admirable. And, of course, you had your critics of this announcement saying, oh, what about the small guys? What about the people that, what about, I saw one person say, what about my granddaughter? Will she be afforded the same opportunities as this rich guy gets just being able to buy a ride in the ARCA West series? It's not like he's buying a ride at Xfinity or trucks. It's the ARCA West series. First of all, NASCAR is a rich man's sport. Say it with me. NASCAR is a rich man's sport. You can hate that. You can feel however you want about it. That's just the facts. You're not going to be running moonshine behind the barn and then going over to Charlotte Motor Speedway and entering even the ARCA race and be competitive. That's not how it works anymore. This is a franchised sport, and it's a you gotta pay to get in, and you gotta either be very, very successful and know somebody that has money, or have money and get into the sport. And even if you have money, there's no guarantee of success. We've seen plenty of drivers that have had a large financial backing. We saw Red Bull Racing that invested a lot of money into the sport, and guess what? They could find the ultimate success that they had seen in Formula One. This is a rich man's sport. You need money to compete. Aside from all of that, Frankie Muniz in the ARCA West series is not a bad thing for the series. It's going to bring more attention because people are going to be like, Frankie Muniz, the kid from Malcolm in the Middle, Walter White's kid, he's running the ARCA West race. Maybe I need to go get a Flow Racing subscription and check this out because that sounds kind of interesting. Maybe I need to go buy a ticket. I'm sure they're not that expensive for the ARCA West race. maybe I need to go buy a ticket and go watch Frankie Muniz race. And then, excuse me, you get these guys paying attention to the ARCA West series, and maybe they start to notice the Jake Drews, the Trevor Huddlestons, the Jesse Loves of the series, and maybe they start to say, hey, this kid's really good. Maybe I should be paying attention more to him. Hey, this kid's really good. Hey, how about this young lady that's in a car that she's underperforming in? Maybe not one of the Bill McNally cars or the Sunrise Racing Fords. Maybe she's on the lead lap and in a lower funded car and in the top 10 or something. Maybe I should pay more attention to her. It's only going to bring more eyes to the sport. So I don't understand why you're mad about it. I would understand if he was just straight hopping into Xfinity and being like, oh, I'm driving in Xfinity and I'm just going to cause caution. Yeah, then you have a right to be upset. But again, it's a rich man sport. I don't think this is going to hurt. Honestly, ARCA West is actually doing a very good job, and I see a lot of comments saying about how the series is dead. ARCA West is honestly probably, you could argue it's in better shape than the National ARCA Menard series right now, just because of how consistent they get, decent field numbers, and how many of those cars are actually racing on a weekly basis. I honestly think we need some sort of publicity like this for the ARCA East series that is hanging on by a thread and kind of just attached to the hip of the ARCA Menard series. And if it's not attached to the ARCA Menard series, it's not doing so hot. So that's my take on the Frankie Muniz news. I'm sorry, I have to go blow my nose or something. I feel like I'm going to die. Also this week that Logan Paul and KSI are going to be sponsoring Timmy Hill and MBM Motorsports this weekend in the NASCAR Xfinity race. And I honestly don't know what to do with this one. I mean, listen. People are going to be very critical of these two guys, especially Logan Paul, given his past. Not a fan of the dude either. Not a fan of him. Not a fan of his brother. Great WrestleMania match by Logan. Not a big fan of him, though. Not a great fan. Not a big fan. Don't really care for the dude. But again, it's nice to see these people, and whether you like it or not, that have a lot of money investing and seeing NASCAR as an opportunity to promote their product and see it as an opportunity to get that engagement, get that product recognition out there. And I honestly hope it works out for them. I hope they invest more and more into the sport. And what a big opportunity for Timmy Hill and MBM Motorsports that, let's be honest, could use all the money that they can get. So, again, whether you like Logan Paul, whether you hate Logan Paul and KSI, it's cool to see these guys actually get involved in the sport and see more money be invested into the sport. And continuing on the form of more money being invested in the sport and bringing big names into the sport, the news that really took over NASCAR this week was Trackhouse Racing's announcement of Project 91. Now, what is Project 91? It is an opportunity from, Team Trackhouse to bring in global stars, global recognizable stars, and bring them in and give a shot in the NASCAR Cup Series on a part-time basis. And I think this is really cool. I think a lot of people, again, on the Facebook page, don't really know what a global star is, because I saw a lot of recommendations saying, oh, they should put Matt DiBenedetto in the ride. They should put Ryan Newman in the ride. They should put Matt Kenseth in the ride. Listen, I'm not saying those guys don't deserve an opportunity in the Cup Series again. But it's not the point. It's for, and what ultimately ended up being the case, for global stars like a Kimi Räikkönen. And I'm sorry if I butchered that last name. Apologize. But as they did announce that he will be the first driver of that car making his NASCAR Cup Series debut at Watkins Glen. He ran a couple truck races and Xfinity races a long time ago. And, cool. I think that's awesome. I think it's great. I know I had one comment say, like, okay, but how is this allowed when NASCAR didn't allow Jennifer Jo Cobb to run at Talladega last year? I think this is different. I don't think there's any problem with it. One being the fact that this isn't Rick Ware Racing. This is Trackhouse, which has been arguably one of the best teams in the Cup Series this season. It's not like these guys are just hopping into poop boxes and going to be in the way and cause big crashes. And it's also not like they're heading on to Talladega. I would have been shocked if Trackhouse came out and said, "Oh, Kimmy's running Talladega. Kimmy's running Daytona." That I don't think was ever going to happen. I don't think NASCAR would have approved it to happen. I think a place like Watkins Glen, which is it's just a former Formula One track, which Kimmy will probably adapt to very well. Be interesting to see how he can adapt with not a lot of practice time, so not a lot of seat time. But again, I think that's a very cool move, and I think it's really awesome that a young team like Team Trackhouse they're wanting to invest in the sport and they want to create opportunities for people outside of NASCAR and create awareness for NASCAR outside of NASCAR's general audience. And again, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think Kimmy could go out and wreck on lap 1 at Watkins Glen, look like a total joke. I think it's still a success just for how much publicity it brings. I saw his Instagram post just announcing this had over 100,000 likes, and it was only like an hour or so after this had been announced. And again, sorry, cold season here in Minnesota with the changing weathers, but changing weather conditions. Excuse my bad language. Goodness gracious. But yeah, I think this is a really cool opportunity that Trackhouse is doing. All right, now let's look ahead a little bit to the races ahead this weekend. The ARCA Menard Series and the NASCAR Truck Series will both compete tonight, Friday, and they will both run back-to-back on FS1 with the ARCA Menard Series kicking off all the action. Saturday is the NASCAR Xfinity race, which I still wish was a night race. I don't really understand why this is a day race. I'm not a fan of that, but we'll keep trucking along and head into Sunday, the greatest day for racing with Formula One racing at Monaco, and then obviously the two big boys of the day, the Indy 500 and the Coca-Cola 600, with the Indy cars going off first, with Cup closing out the night. And I think it'll be a great weekend of racing. Obviously, it's a big weekend for Team Penske. Hello, Kosovo. How you doing? For my audio listeners, my cat has climbed into the frame and he has been desperate for attention. So here's your 30 seconds of fame, Kosovo. Who do you think is winning this weekend? Kosovo says Denny Hamlin. So thank you, Kosovo. We will see you next week. But yeah, as I was saying, this is a big weekend in particular for Team Penske, as they are both entered in the Indy 500 and the Coca-Cola 600. I think they're the only team to be doing that this year, with Chip Ganassi Racing no longer involved in the NASCAR Cup Series. Best of luck to Jimmy Johnson, who is competing in the Indy 500 for the first time. But yeah, this is a big weekend for Team Penske. I asked Ryan Blaney during his media availability this week, does that add pressure? This is a big weekend, arguably maybe one of the biggest weekends of the year for Team Penske. Does that add pressure to go out and perform and to go out and win this weekend? Ryan, obviously there's pressure to win every single weekend, but with everything going on this weekend, with it being a big weekend for Team Penske and this being a crown jewel race, is there extra pressure to perform this weekend?
It's obviously a big day. I don't know if there's pressure, but you want to be, you know, obviously you want to win the race because it's a huge race and huge event. But I think that just comes with every weekend. I mean, you understand what you're racing for every weekend, and a win is a win. But yeah, you understand. Hey, this is I'd say one of the crown jewel events, and it'd be. I mean, one of the coolest things that we could do as a company is win the Indy 500 and the 600. There might be more pressure if one of our guys go out and win Indy. We'll learn about that right before a race. We're like, oh damn, we got to win tonight to make it, to make it a double. That would be so super cool. So we'll see, but there might be added pressure if those guys go out and one of them wins the 500. So we got to make it a clean Penske sweep for the weekend. So that might add a little pressure. But we'll see. Just go out and do the best you can, and it's just another race, and that's kind of how you have to approach it.
Obviously, this weekend is a big deal in the sense that it's Memorial Day weekend, and it's very important to go out and honor those that have served and who have made the ultimate sacrifice. And obviously, NASCAR does a fantastic job honoring all of those. If you've never been to the Coca-Cola 600, I'd say it's worth the price of admission alone just for all they do during pre-race ceremonies to honor those that have served, and just very much is one of the coolest things that you could see as a NASCAR fan. I highly, highly recommend it. But keeping with that theme this year, there's a lot of patriotic cars, including Corey LaJoie, whose number 7 Spire Motorsports Chevrolet will be sponsored by the USO this week. I had the opportunity to ask him during his media session this week what it meant to him to be carrying the patriotic colors and the USO on his car during Memorial Day weekend. Here's what he had to say. Corey, this weekend being Memorial Day, how cool of a deal is it for you to have the USO on your car?
Man, super cool. Appreciate you asking that. Yeah, it's something we've been working on. I've been working with Coke on some different things through eNASCAR and as well as the podcast. So to tie Coca-Cola and their support with the USO, obviously the Coke 600, there's so many different things that are coming together this week. A lot of obligations on my part that I'm happy to be a part of. Meeting a lot of service members, feeding men and women on Sunday before the race, and just the amount of support that's coming from carrying the USO on the car for 600 miles of remembrance is pretty cool. So it's been a lot of work behind the scenes of trying to put all this together. So to carry USO in this patriotic paint scheme on Memorial Day weekend is something I take pretty serious.
All right, everybody, that is going to wrap it up for us today. I appreciate you watching and taking time out of your day to listen. I hope you guys have a great Memorial Day weekend. I'm going to be back next week. I'm not going to take another long break. I know I probably said that last time, but swear to God, I'm going to be back next week. Hope maybe more than once. Who knows? But with that being said, my name is Mitchell Brewer. This has been Encumbered, and if you like what you saw, be sure to follow us on Facebook at Black Hat Sports. Subscribe here on YouTube, or if you're watching this on Facebook, be sure to follow our Facebook page, Black Hat Sports. Plug, plug, plug. And yeah, have a great Memorial Day. See you next week.